Good morning everyone. So today we are going to start the topic of economics practice question, that is for paper 2 commerce. So this particular topic is very important for your UGC NET December 2018 exam. I would also like to tell you that approximately 8 to 10 questions are likely to come in this paper of paper 2 for commerce. So this particular economic subject has a very good weightage for the examination, and it is also very important and easy. So if you are following the concepts properly, if you are able to solve the questions, it will be very helpful to you for your exam and you will be score very good marks. So let us move ahead and begin with the first question for the day. The horizontal demand curve, when parallel to x-axis, the elasticity of demand is dash. So this particular question is based on elasticity of demand. So I'd like to brief you a little about elasticity. So elasticity of demand is basically the responsiveness change of quantity demanded due to change in price. So that is elasticity, and it is also calculated in the numerical terms using the formula percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So that's a very easy formula. And here we are talking about the graphical representation. So if you could recall that there were different diagrams that used to portray the different elasticities. So I would just like to recall them. So if you have a demand curve parallel to x-axis, the elasticity used to be infinity. If the demand curve used to be vertical to y-axis, the elasticity of demand used to be 0. If it was a downward sloping curve, it used to be elasticity is equal to 1. If it used to be less than unity, or if it used to be a steeper curve, then the elasticity used to be less than unity, less than sign. And if the horizontal demand curve used to be a very flatter curve, the elasticity used to be greater than 1. So this is all about a graphical representation. Now if you are aware about these 5 diagrams, it becomes very easier for you to solve this question. So now, since in this question the question is asking that the horizontal demand curve is parallel to x-axis, we know that the elasticity is going to be infinite. So D is the option, or you can say the correct option in this case. So in this way we can solve the questions. Moving to the next question for the day. If the demand curve is hyperbola, what will be the elasticity? Again, a very good question, but I would like to tell you that we must know one of the properties of the demand curve, that if the demand curve is downward sloping hyperbola, then the area covered at any of the points. So let us understand this diagram first. Now if we move to any of these points, whether it be A, B or C, then the area covered by each of these points will give equal area, or you can say that the area will give same elasticity, and that is equal to 1. So this is also one of the property that has been proved using mathematical derivation. So whenever you get a question that the demand curve is hyperbola, or if there is any curve that makes a hyperbola curve, or if the curve is known as hyperbola, then the elasticity or the area under the curve, this particular curve, the total area that we are configuring here, will be 1. So in this case the answer becomes very simple, that in this case the demand or the elasticity will be 1. So this is how, if you are aware about the properties, it becomes very easier for you to answer the particular questions. Moving to the next question for the day. The value of a factor in its next best alternative use is known as dash. Again, a very basic question, but you need to understand the concept of next best alternative use. So let us understand this using an example. So let us say that Mr. X is a college going student and he gets a job offer where he could work during his summer internship and earn a stipend of rupees 3000. At the same time, he is also being interested into pursuing a course, the cost of which is rupees 5000 per month. So the cost of course is rupees 5000 and the amount of earnings that he could make is 3000. So now in this case, if he uses this particular option of going for this particular course, the next best alternative that is available is earning rupees 3000, which he is actually foregoing. So this is the cost. And if he goes for this particular stipend, or if you say if he go for this particular internship or job, then the next best alternative which is available is rupees 5000, that he's basically preventing, or you can say which is being reduced. So this is the next best alternative. So whatever the next best alternative which is being foregone by an individual is known as your opportunity cost, because this is the opportunity cost you are making. So if you are taking one, you are leaving the other one. So that is known as opportunity cost. So you can get n number of examples in this case. So wherever you just have to understand a very simple thing, that the next best alternative use or the next best alternative that you are foregoing becomes your opportunity cost, because that is the cost that you have actually left over. So that's the concept of opportunity cost. Moving to the next question for the day. The demand curve for a product will shift outwards to the right when which of the following. So there are a few factors given, or you can say there are few options, and we need to identify that the demand curve will shift outwards to the right when which of the factors will be working. So first you need to understand that it is an outward shift towards right. So I would just like to recall a concept that a demand curve could either move on a same demand curve. So it could either be an upward movement or a downward movement on the same demand curve, or you can actually shift from one demand curve to the other. So this is the original demand curve, let us say DD. So you can actually shift to the other demand curve, let us say D1. So in this case we are making a rightward shift, or you can also make a shift that is leftward shift denoted by D2. So this is our leftward shift and this is our rightward shift. So first of all, whenever we get a question, we need to identify that whether it's asking about a movement along the demand curve or whether it is asking a shift. So in this case, the question clearly says that the question is relating to outward shift or rightward shift, and it is a shift, not a movement. So first of all, we need to understand that the movement along the demand curve takes place by just one factor, that is price. So whenever there is a fall in price, there is movement ahead, or you can say downward movement, and whenever there is a rise in price, there is a backward movement or upward movement along the demand curve. And other factors, which are your price of related goods, your taste and preferences, income of the consumers, these are the factors that actually contributes towards your shift in the demand curve. Now that could be rightward or leftward depending on the situation. So let us evaluate all these things first. The first statement says price of substitute rises. Now we know that in case of the rise in price of substitute good, the demand for our own product, let us say tea. So let us say tea and coffee are the two products which are actually substitutes. So in this case, if the price of coffee rises, the demand, or you can say the quantity demanded for tea would certainly rise, and thus there will be a rightward shift outward. So we clearly get our answer that A is the correct answer in this case. We can also evaluate other options. Income falls. So if there is a fall in income, then in this case the demand for tea, or you can say the quantity demanded, would fall. So there will be a leftward shift. So this is not the answer. Price of the own product falls. Now since I have just told you that when we are relating to price of the own product, it actually leads to movement along the demand curve and not the shift. So again, this is not the answer. So the clear cut answer in this case is price of substitute rises. So whenever there is a rise in prices of substitute goods, the demand would rise for your own product. So hence there would be a rightward shift. So that's a clear cut answer in this case. Moving to the last question for the day. When price elasticity of demand is unity, the total expenditure, what happens to the total expenditure? So again, a question is based on elasticity, but this time they are not using a graphical representation, but rather they are talking about the expenditure method. So one of the methods to know about elasticity is expenditure method, which you need to understand. So I'll tell you a very easy way to remember that how you're gonna identify the expenditure. So let us say that you consider your price as well as your expenditure. So whenever there is a rise in price and the expenditure rises in the same direction, let us say the expenditure also rises. So they are moving in the same direction. So in this case, without any thought or without giving in a second thought, you can say that the elasticity would be less than 1. If you talk about that there is a fall in price and the expenditure tends to rise, that means they are moving in the opposite direction, not in the same direction, but rather in the opposite direction, then in that case you can say that the elasticity is greater than 1. And the third is, whatever be the change in price, whether they rise or whether they fall, if there is no change in the expenditure, then in that case the elasticity of demand is said to be 1. So if you are able to recall these three elements, it becomes very easier for you to solve any question based on expenditure method. So I am recalling this particular concept once again. If the price and the quantity, if the price and the expenditure are moving in the same direction, that is a rise in price leads to rise in expenditure, or a fall in price leads to fall in expenditure, then in that case the elasticity would be less than 1 or less than unity. If the price and the expenditure are moving in the opposite direction, that is a price falls and expenditure rises, or the price rises and expenditure falls, they are moving in the opposite direction, then the elasticity would be greater than 1 or greater than unity. Whenever due to any change in price, there is no change in the total expenditure, then in that case the elasticity will be equal to 1. So these are the three particular concepts. If you are able to recall them, you'll be able to solve this question. So in this case, let us have a look at the question once again. When price of elasticity of demand is unity, the total expenditure will. So now you already know that if the price elasticity is 1, the total expenditure is not going to change. So in this case, let us have a look. Increase with rise in price? No. Decrease with decrease with fall in price? No. Rises with fall in price? Again, no. No change. So no change is the answer, because whatever be the change in your price, there will be no change in the total expenditure. So in this way, you can see that if you are clear with the concept, whether it be your graphical representation or whether it be your expenditure method, it becomes very easier for you to solve this particular question. So I would again like to tell you that in this particular subject of economics, concept is something that is very important. So try understanding the concepts. Even if you are solving these questions, try to know all the options, try to know the terms and the meanings. It will be helpful to you for your future questions as well. So that's all for today. We'll be coming back with some more videos on other topics of economics. Till then, keep studying. Thank you.